Hi, I'm Jana Shalom, and this is Interrupting the Survival Spiral. In these videos, we name survival patterns and myths that many of us were taught to see as personal failure when they're actually collective. This isn't about debate or motivation. It's about clarity. And when patterns are named calmly, the nervous system has more choice. And when choice returns, this is where regulation grows. Sometimes grief appears. At the exact moment, things begin to soften. A little bit of steadiness returns. Sleep deepens slightly. Our breathing slows a bit. The body no longer feels quite as tightly held. And then sadness arrives. Tears seem to emerge unexpected. Memories that used to feel closed off come close again. A heaviness appears without any warning. In that moment, many of us reach the same conclusion. If things were truly improving, I would not be feeling this way, and this would not be happening. Yet, the presence of grief can actually come quite quickly when we begin to thaw our nervous system. And it's not evidence that something's wrong. Today, we're actually interrupting the belief that when grief appears, the nervous system is collapsing. Because the nervous system isn't actually collapsing. It's finally feeling safe enough to feel what it once had to suppress. Many of us inherited an invisible emotional rule. A rule that sounds something like this: if healing is happening, feeling should become easier. If sadness returns, progress must be disappearing. So when grief appears, we treat it like a warning sign. We interpret it as we're regressing, and we assume something within this must be failing. But the nervous system does not organize experiences that way. When the body has been living in survival for a very long time, these periods can feel like practically anything that happens doesn't feel right. So we postpone our feelings. We create emotional distance between things when they appear. But when the nervous system begins to settle, we're finally in a place where those feelings can come to light and we can process them without functioning from survival. In the past, if we weren't regulated and these things appeared, our system would overwhelm, and oftentimes we'd shut down or go into protection mode because the nervous system is here to keep us safe. It holds what we cannot yet process, whether that's grief, fear, loneliness, rejection, exhaustion. All of this can remain quietly stored within the body while we continue to function. But when something shifts and we choose to relate to our bodies differently, meaning we choose to factor in what our nervous system is communicating, this shifts safety within our own body, and safety begins to return, sometimes slowly, sometimes only in small pockets, but just enough for safety to appear. The nervous system no longer needs to seal everything away. And when this happens, not only do we stop sealing, but we also start releasing things we once kept close and safe. So it's natural that many of us would misinterpret this moment. I think that makes sense. Because when thawing begins, the first thing we often feel is grief. Not because something went horribly wrong, but because the body is finally safe enough to release what it could not carry before. So the presence of grief does not automatically mean deterioration. Sometimes it means the nervous system has softened enough for us to allow feeling back into our life again. And this can look like unexpected tears. It can look like waves of sadness without really understanding, why do I feel this way? It could be memories returning that we once had put in a box up on a shelf. Tenderness where numbing once lived. And because many of us are unfamiliar with feeling this much, it can resemble collapse. But often it's the exact opposite of collapse. It's the body bracing less tightly. And when that bracing softens, feelings return. So it actually means our nervous systems are able to interpret more of the moment than before. And this is an important permission, because inside of this moment, when grief is appearing, we're not giving it analysis. We're not trying to remedy it. We're not trying to resolve it and fix ourselves. Sometimes the most stabilizing thing we can do is simply recognize that the nervous system is finally feeling safe. And with that safety, the body begins to trust what begins to soften. And when something softens and feelings appear, this is not failure. That is movement. If grief has been appearing lately, nothing needs to be resolved. There's no requirement for us to process it. Sometimes the most supportive shift is simply changing the way we name the moment. Instead of, I'm feeling grief, so something must be wrong with me, we might say, my nervous system sometimes releases feelings, especially when safety is returning. And it feels like that's what might be happening now. That is a small shift, yet it can change how our bodies hold the experience. Because grief does not need to disappear. It doesn't need to go away in order for healing to be present. Oftentimes, it's the grief itself that must be felt in order for the healing to arrive. This is a sign that our nervous systems have begun to thaw. And that's the interruption.